Fáilte folks, my name is Darren McCann and welcome to the Irish Folklore and Mythology podcast. Irish folklore is some of the best myths and legends that the world has ever known. Here we will talk heroes, warriors, demons, gods, goddesses and all manner of mythical and supernatural beings. Learn about some obscure Celtic and Irish stories you have not heard and refresh your minds on well-known tales from right here in the Emerald Isle. So please sit back and listen to the stories of Ireland of old. So the majority of accounts that we have of a true ancient Ireland are from the ever-innocent, cabbage-smelling Christian medieval chroniclers, who came a long time after the stories and tales of which they wrote, as chroniclers usually do. They wrote of heroes in their eternal youth, beautiful, fairy-like goddesses that would make your family stop and ask, "Why did you throw us away, Seamus? Why?" To which Seamus would reply, "Ma, come on now, you've seen her." And kings who they confused still being half-divine descendants of the Allium. As being still Irish though, and still having our traditions ingrained into their very being from our ancestors, these half-baked Christians did not throw away all Irish beliefs in their writings. They mixed history and fiction together, which I think worked out pretty good, because I'm sat here dribbling on about it, and whatever you're doing, you're listening to it. So we're in it together, lads. It'll be truly interesting though, and something I often think about, to separate fact from these medieval stories, because then we would truly hear about, as the iconic W.B. Yeats wrote, one of the oldest worlds that man has ever imagined. Just for example, arguably the second most famous warrior of Ulster, Cuchulainn, he would have lived around the time of the birth of Jesus Christ himself. In this episode, we will talk about the coming of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Part 1, the fight with the Firbolgs. Now, we're going to be introduced to quite a number of ancient errant gods, goddesses and warriors, so there's no need to keep up because, to be quite honest, I can't. On a calm, still, gentle morning, the burning sun slowly rises. The sky looks as though it has been set ablaze by an engulfing red fire, the golden rays reaching everything in creation under the hidden stars. The fog sits on the tranquil waters that surround the serene island of Ireland. It is so thick you could not see an inch in front of your face. Suddenly, the peacefulness is shattered, and out of the thickness of the fog, like a dragon's face poking through, dozens of ships slowly creep and penetrate the soundless air. Loud echoing drums are heard. The ships are finely crafted wooden vessels with ancient intricate carvings upon them. The hundreds of inhabitants of these ships, men, women and children, all painted, tattooed and well dressed with long, eloquent robes. They carry their weapons, some things that have not been seen at this time before. They sail towards the land, their new home. These people are the Tuatha Dé Danann, or as some people call them, the Men of Day. Some say they came to Ireland to seek refuge from their previous lands, and others to take over the Emerald Isle for themselves, whatever means necessary. It was from the mysterious north in which they came. The unknown land they left behind had 4 great cities upon it. The Danann did not fight for blood, unless absolutely necessary. They fought battles for knowledge. They fought against the mighty Falias, the shining Gorias, and the devastatingly powerful rich Morias, who are obviously all related. They lived on the south side of their old lands, and they either stole or brought with them from these 4 great cities the most valuable treasures the world had ever beheld. The Stone of Virtue from the Falias, that was also known as Leafoil, the Stone of Destiny from Goriaz. And I checked a few sources, and it doesn't really say nothing about how powerful these stones really were. So I'm guessing it's less Harry Potter and the really old fella's kidney stone, and more Avengers Infinity Stone's job. They also brought with them to their new home a deadly enchanted sword and the Spear of Victory, not to be mistaken for the Spear of Destiny, which pierced the side of Christ at the crucifixion. And super fun fact of the day, it is actually known that Hitler and the always optimistic, positive Nazis spent an untold fortune on occult paraphernalia. Hitler was a huge groupie for the veiled world of the supernatural, trying to locate, now, and this is no joke, death rays, the lost city of Atlantis, and also the Spear of Destiny, to name a few. Many actually believed that it was because of Hitler's obsession with the occult that lost them the war. And the final treasure the men of Day brought to our shores was from Tuireadh, which was the cauldron that no company ever went hungry after eating from. And that was from the Dagda's Cauldron, which actually is a video we previously discussed called the Dagda's Harp, which you should probably definitely check out. It's alright, I'll wait. The Tuatha Dé Danann to the Irish were our ancient heritage. These were our gods, our religion, and our way of life. We as Irish, Celtic, and Gaelic descendants for thousands of years prayed and sacrificed daily to them. They have been in our stories from the very beginning. Most of our mythologies, folklore, and legends stem from them boys right there. Tuatha at this time was the king of the Danann. Then we have the chiefs and generals of the godlike tribe. Agma, younger brother to the king, who taught all the Danann the art of writing and healing. Then we have Nate, the god of battle and war, Crendus, the craftsman, and Gwobni, the smith. The greatest of women amongst them was Bod, the battle goddess, undoubtedly the fiercest warrior of them all. Then we have Magh, who feasted on the decapitated heads of her victims on the battlefield. Up next, the Morrigu. She was known as the Crow of Battle. Following this then, Banba, Éire, and Fodla, daughters of the almighty Dagda. It is said that the oldest name of Ireland was lost, but that these three daughters gave theirs willingly. We then have Éideann, who was the goddess of all nurses and people who cared for the sick, and probably one you will recognise, Bridget, whom the Catholic Church stole and thrusted into their pantheon of saints. Bridget, whose name in Old Gaelic means a fiery arrow, she was the goddess of poetry, and it is known that poets across our beautiful country idolised, apparently still to this day, pray for her inspiration. Although one side of her face was hideously disfigured and scarred, and the other then beautifully breathtaking, which I actually think personally is analysis on just the human psyche and life itself, duality between the light and the dark. Other powerful women within the tribe were the unnamed ghostly shadow queens, who were not quite living in this realm, but not quite living in the others. And then we have the goddess of all goddesses, Dana, who was all-seeing and all-powerful. It states that they had a holy well. This holy well was located below the sea, where within they grew 9 hazels of wisdom, the hazels of inspiration and of the knowledge of poetry. The water of this well was dark purple in colour, and living within were 5 salmon, who were also brightly red, and any god or man alike that ate these fish would be granted all the wisdom of the world and the gift of poetry. Mad for the poetry there. The Danann arrived in the Emerald Isle on the first day of Baltana, now known to us as May Day. They landed in Dulach Beach in Connacht, in the county of Mayo, west of the country. The peoples at that time who claimed Ireland for their own were known as the Firbolgs, also known as the Men of the Bag. And now, to be fair, if you're starting a new group and you do want to separate yourself from the masses, you want something that people won't forget, long live the Men of the Bag. A man known as Eochaid, son of Urk, was High King of the Firbolgs, the residing force upon the island, when the celestial Danann arrived. The messengers of the Firbolgs rode out to see this new race of people. The Danann's boats were docked on the shore, and not believing their eyes, they rode hard and fast back to their kingdom in Tuireadh, which is actually the hill of Tara, to tell their king of what they had seen. Though before the messengers arrived the next morning, the night before, King Eochaid had a dream, and by God it was some dream. Instantly when he awoke, he consulted his gaggle of druids, and was told a strong new enemy approached. King Eochaid called a council meeting with his chief advisors and top generals. They all eventually agreed that their best tactical option was to send their best skilled and deadliest champion to make contact with these strangers. The warrior's name was Sreng, a ruthless man, a man who had been fighting and winning since he fell out of his mother, 6 months of age. He set out from the hill of Tara. Through dense, deep dark forests, Sreng pushed forward, abandoning his horse as the growth was far too thick for both of them to continue. As he grew closer to the Danann's camp, not knowing what to expect, the ever-watching eyes in the shadows as he cautiously approached. So in turn, the Danann sent their own destroyer and champion, Brez, to greet this man. Brez wore marks of blue war paint down his face, and all over his body he was severely scarred. He was a hulking man, with bright piercing eyes, long dark hair, and a large beard. He brought with him a shield, a sword, and 2 large spears sheathed on his back. Sreng and Brez both spotted each other across the wild wilderness and slowly walked forward. They walked either side of a large grassy hill surrounded by dark woodland. A raven then flew overhead. They never broke eye contact, studying each other's movements, keeping watch on their hands. As they met face to face on top of the grassy mound, out of respect from champion to champion, they both drove their shields hard into the ground, letting each other know they were here to speak. And Brez was the first to say anything. Sreng could not believe his ears. Brez spoke to him in Irish, his native tongue. The warrior then was at ease, and they both began to talk of each other's homes and kin. After a long journey back, Sreng arrived back to the castle upon the hill of Tara. He gave his king the men of days terms. The large hall was surrounded by all Firbolgs, townspeople, warriors, chief of war advisors. Sreng showed them all Brez's spear. He was met with a gasp. He urged his king, he pleaded, and all chief advisors, please do not go to war with the Danann, as their weaponry is far too superior. After much discussion and loud shouting of all townspeople in the hall, King Eochaid declared, they will not give up half their country to these strangers, for if they do, he said, they will soon take the whole. That's fair enough, like. After leaving Friendship Hill himself, the warrior Brez went back to his people of the Tuatha Dé Danann. He showed them Sreng's spear and told them of the sturdy beast of a man who wielded it. It was decided. The Tuatha Dé Danann prepared for war. They left their camp to find a better battleground, going farther west through Connacht. They strategically constructed ditches and walls with a large mountain of Belgata behind them. As the others prepared for battle, the 3 queens of the Danann, Bad, Magh, and the Morgu, made their way to the hill of Tara, where the Firbolgs resided. The three queens of unimaginable power cursed the hill of Tara, bringing mists and clouds of complete blackness over the kingdom. Using their chaos magic, they made the sky intensely rain fire and blood, scorching and drenching the people of the Firbolgs below. Their plan was to stop King Eochaid and his cohorts from discussing his battle plans. But after the end of 3 days, 3 long days, 3 druids of the Firbolgs stopped the enchantment. Then, after this mystic attack, the Firbolgs gathered all men, which was said to be over 11 battalions strong, and made their stand at the eastern play of Magh, where the Danann's camp was located. King Tuatha rode out upon his horse, and seeing the sheer volume of his enemies preparing their attack, he sent once again messengers to give the Firbolgs the same offer. If half the country was given to them, there would be no need for violence and no need for any bloodshed. But King Eochaid laughed and refused their offer once again. Though it says both sides then agreed to delay the war so they'd have sufficient time to prepare. It is said the reason for this delay was that both sides could make sure they had equally destructive weapons, and it took them a quarter of a year to do so. Then, on Midsummer's Day, the battle began. The ferocious fight drew on for 4 long bloody days and bloody nights, both armies claiming minor victories throughout. Great many champions were lost. Most warriors on both sides fell on the blood-soaked muddy battlefield, dying slowly, dying alone. The Danann then got the upper hand and drove the Firbolgs back. And it says in many different sources that upon this time King Eochaid of the Firbolgs then decided he had an almighty thirst upon him. And why wouldn't he? Sure, he's Irish. And after 4 long days and nights of fighting, 2 crates of Guinness and a bottle of whiskey inside him, like. Sorry, Irish listeners will get that. So when King Eochaid sneaked off the battleground, his battalion of security went with him. And seeing this, the Tuatha Dé Danann followed, and there they took their chance. They had a fierce fight in a place known as Tuireadh, and their king Eochaid was killed. He fell and was then buried. When the leader was no more, Sreng, remember Brez's buddy, now taking command of the Firbolgs, told the men to lay down their weapons and surrender. King Tuatha, seeing this, respected it, and being a forgiving victor, offered peace and gave the remaining men their pick of the 5 provinces of Ireland. Sreng said they would take Connacht, and there he and his people lived in happiness for generations. It was from Sreng and his people that the mighty Connacht champion and warrior, Firbolgs, came, who went toe to toe and nearly bested Cuchulainn. The Danann then took possession of Ireland and the Firbolgs' kingdom upon the hill of Tara. For it was there every High King of Ireland reigned from then on. It was a bit of a long one, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed getting out a lot of different sources. It's one of the oldest stories we have. Now, in time-wise, this would have been thousands and thousands of years ago. And as I mentioned, it was very popular in medieval times by these Irish chroniclers. This is what it's all about. This is where our Irish folklore, mythology and legends began, this being the earliest on record. And as I said, this was part 1, so I'll be getting round to part 2 of the story. And we're literally only at the tip of the iceberg here when it comes to these stories. The Book of Invasions is upon us. Again, hope you enjoyed listening. As always, if you liked it, please like it, please share, and please comment. And don't forget, guys, love and positivity.